Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today, I've got Kyle McDowell with me. Kyle, what's up, buddy?
Hey, Brett. I'm well. It's great to be with you today. I appreciate you having me.
It's great to be with you as well, man. I'm excited. I based on what I've seen about you and your energy, we're gonna have an awesome conversation today, man. So I'm fired up.
Likewise, I hope so. I'm just thrilled to be here. Anytime I get a chance to kind of spread the message and evangelize the work that I'm doing, especially on a podcast that's been around as long as yours, I jump at it. So again, thank you.
Awesome. Well, you are a former Fortune 10 executive that turned to a Wall Street and USA Today best-selling author and speaker. You're traveling the world, man, on all sorts of stages. But before we dive in, man, you are today, man. There's a backstory in there and something that makes Kyle tick, and I'd love to see if we can pull some of that out.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'd be remiss because if I didn't just start early on. I was very fortunate to have a mother who had an incredible work ethic. She was a single parent mom for the first several years of my life until she met a wonderful man who became my stepdad. And, they always instilled a sense of work ethic in me that I just don't think you can replicate. I think it's hard to teach it if it doesn't start at an early age. So I just learned the value of a dollar and the value of, or the connection rather, between hard work and outcomes. If you want something, you got to go work for it. I'll never forget, man, growing up, every time a new pair of Air Jordans would hit the stores, and I wanted those things every single year. The new shoe would come out. I knew what I had to do. I had to put in weeks of yard work. It was always the recipe. So I entered corporate America at 17, ironically, or believe it or not. I interviewed for a job at a local bank when I was 17 years old. I rolled the dice that if I were to get an offer, the offer would come sometime after my 18th birthday because they wouldn't have hired me if they'd known I was a minor. Right. And it worked. So I interviewed in June of 1993, got the offer in July, started in August. And I've been a kind of a student of leadership in the dynamics that come with working inside of corporate America for the last nearly 30 years. So I think that's what brings us here today. But I have to share also, man, throughout that 30-year journey, and I'm sure you and certainly many of your listeners might be able to relate, I found myself becoming more and more apathetic towards the whole thing, towards the whole gig, man. And when I say gig, I mean everything that comes with working inside the corporate world, the bureaucracy, the dysfunction, the toxicity, all of the things. And I'm the first to admit, by the way, man, I perpetuated a lot of that. When you're leading big organizations, you're put in a position where lather, rinse, repeat. What's always worked will continue to work. So you just kind of perpetuate that same toxicity and dysfunction. Yep. And I hit a boiling point late in my career, probably around year 23, where I just said, there has to be a better way. And that's when I came up with the concept that ultimately resulted in the book that you mentioned at the top. And it's changed my life, actually. The realization I came to about, leading with a we mindset and getting to know your people and investing your time and energy into them. Just certainly it changed my professional life. And that is, I'm so happy to say, it's transcended into my personal life as well and my relationships.
Well, I think you and I have a lot in common. I mean, it's a career decision that we made. I made mine at 12 and a half years in my professional career. Wow. You made yours, sounds like at 22 years, but I was the same way, man. And I say this is that as my success, quote unquote success was going like that, my job satisfaction, my career satisfaction was going the other direction. And, I had a nice firm and a nice office and things like that, but it just didn't feel right. And so now, same to you, like our firm now, our mission, everything is around that future greater than your past. And it has been life-changing. So I agree with you, but talk to the listener right now that's 22 years in a career or 12 and a half years into a career, and they're scared as hell, man, to go make that jump, bet on themselves, walk away from, the 401k plan, the health insurance, the nice check they're getting, all the stuff you and I had, right? Talk to our listeners about that step.
Well, first, I'm glad you went here because it's always a fear of mine that when I talk about my transition from the corporate world into starting my own deal and hitting the road to evangelize these principles, that I don't want it to be lost, or that leap is scary as all get out. It is. It's absolutely terrifying. Especially if you've spent, as a dozen plus years, in my case, more than 20 years. We get programmed. We are absolutely programmed to get up a certain time, go through the same, just, clock in, clock out, and look for the next paycheck, look for the next promotion, kind of keep your head down. But there's this expression that hit me right around the time I realized I had to make a change. And it was, they pay you to forget your dreams. Oh. And there's no nefarious scheme behind the scenes that this happens to us. But, and I can tell by the way you frame the question that you kind of relate, right? You start making that paycheck. There's some security that comes in. I had a fair amount of money in the bank where I felt comfortable. And it just became, it became my identity. My corporate life became my identity. So much so that when I wrote the book, I had friends saying, I had no idea that you were this passionate about these things, because I didn't, Kyle at work was different than Kyle at home, which is not good. I mean, that's a lack of authenticity, which is something I didn't realize at the time. So for your listeners, to me, it's never forget that everything we do every single day is the result of a choice. And you can choose to continue down the same path, get the 2-3% raise every year, maybe you get a promotion every few years, whatever your path, wherever your path takes you. And that's not wrong. That's not wrong. But the choice to do something different, maybe a little unconventional, is something that I decide that we have, because they do pay to forget your dreams. And the sooner you realize there's a choice to be made, and that there are opportunities that are virtually unlimited out there today. The number of things you can do today is exponentially higher than it ever was before.
Yeah, it is.
But that all starts with a choice, right? You made the choice. I made the choice. And I don't want anybody out there to hear this and think that, well, he's ascended to a certain level. No, it is terrifying at any level when you make a decision. I'm calling this chapter 2 of my career, because the first chapter I closed the book on about 5 years ago. It is scary, but I am absolutely convinced my level of impact is directly correlated to the level of effort and the amount of time I grind at this thing I'm doing today. And that is no different than anybody else out there.
Yeah. Well, don't you think too, you're working in your brilliant, line with your values and your mission and all those things, right? Is you're not going to ever get the impact that you make now, because you're choosing the path that you're going down. And I think there's so much power in the word choice. I love that you're saying that, but don't you believe that?
Yeah. Brett, I do believe it. And I think it's even worse than the way you describe it, because not only are you not your best self when you're doing something that you don't love or you're not passionate about. Most companies, either directly or not, they filter you to the point where you can't even be curious. You can't even, there's this concept of being an entrepreneur inside of the corporate world, which I think is a beautiful concept, because you don't accept the status quo. You're always looking to innovate. You're looking to do things differently. You want to have a great experience for your employees and your team and your customers, by the way. But a lot of organizations, they filter us and kind of dilute our impact to the point where there's no way to find that passion. Because think of where I talk about this a lot, man. When we enter the workforce, think back for your journey and those that are listening to us or watching us now. We all enter the workforce with a tremendous amount of optimism, excitement. We want to have an impact. We want to do big things. But most organizations don't necessarily value that, or at least not to the point where it challenges the status quo. It's kind of like get in line, keep your head down, and move on. So if we're, for all of us, if we're able to marry something that we're passionate about with a way to make a living and support our family, take a trip every now and then, that's happiness to me. And that's something we should all aspire to. But again, over time, things mount up, and we lose sight of that opportunity, lose sight of the choice.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I think too, it made me think about even your health. For me, I can't speak for you, but for me, man, it was I was going down a path where I've always been an anxious person. I was a nervous child. You know, I always, before games or before any big event, man, I was nervous. I was always nervous. And that just kept going. And then as my career, I would kind of battle through those things, but then I hit a point to where, man, I was having like a panic attack. And, I did all this. I went to Mayo Clinic and did an executive physical and spent all this money and, hey, dude, you're fine. I did that. And then I had a guy that I would consider a friend, and hopefully he hears this, and maybe I'll have to send it to him and tell him. But he gave me some words that a doctor I don't think normally uses. And I won't share the words exactly, but what he told me, what I needed to do. And I needed to hear it, man. And I was just having panic attacks. And then as I learned about panic and anxiety and stress, I learned that I wasn't living up to my potential and I wasn't following the dreams and the passions that I had. So it was manifesting in other ways. And man, Absolutely. Isn't it amazing now, almost 10 years later, how different I feel. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's incredible to me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So it is incredible, but sorry, man. We're just having we're stepping on each other. There's a bit of a delay again. I know hopefully we can edit that out, but
yeah.
I think it's no question about it. When I made the decision to step away and really invest in myself, both from an energy and time perspective, but also a dollars and cents perspective, because as you know, starting a business isn't cheap, certainly not free. I was probably at my most unhealthy, physically, psychologically. I had just been kind of worn down over the years, but it's worse than that. I'm not embarrassed to say, and I've learned from this, my career cost me a marriage. I was working so much, traveling every single week for years on end that, as I mentioned earlier, it became my identity. And so much so that identity was not the husband I wanted to be. It wasn't the friend I wanted to be. So that was also a hell of a wake-up call for me, which, look, man, I'm not proud of that, but it also is an experience that has taught me, and I'm a better person for it. Like everything else, I think in life, any challenge on the other side of that is hopefully a better outcome.
So what right now, when you look at your career and the things and the people you're helping, what's your biggest challenge, or I've been calling it lately the head scratcher? Like, what's the head scratcher for you that it's like, God, you just wish you could reach across the table and let somebody understand that? What is it for you?
It's without question, it is getting people to understand and believe that when you make a choice to lead differently, maybe be the leader you never had, when you invest time and energy in others more so than yourself, and you care less about your own personal quote success, however you define that, and you invest that energy into others' growth, development, success, their achievements, two things happen. Well, a number of things, but two things primarily kind of resonate with me. One is the results on the macro level, they come. So that switch, you are overtly making a switch that you're no longer focused on your own goals, your own growth, your own success. You don't lose sight of those things, but you focus that on those that you're responsible to lead. The two things are they perform better. Your team the overall macro results that you deliver are better without question.
Yep.
But the bigger component is the satisfaction and fulfillment that comes is profoundly, exponentially greater than keeping the focus on yourself.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
And when I say this, there's a lot of skepticism in the room, and I have to admit, if someone were to have approached me and said the same thing, like focus less on you and more on everyone around you, you'll benefit in ways that you could never have predicted, I would have said it's bullshit. So that's it. That's the head scratcher for me, Brett. If people were to understand and realize the value that comes with deprioritizing your own quote unquote success for others, I think not only would the corporate world be in a much better place, I think the world would be a better place. So that's the head scratcher. I love the way you frame it. That's the head scratcher for me.
One of the things I look at when I'm talking to other leaders, or I hear somebody in the room talking, if I'm listening at a conference or whatever, when I hear the word I, right? One of my biggest pet peeves is when they say I did this and I did that. Like none of my success is because of I only. right? It's because of we and the people I've got around me. Like I couldn't do what I do without amazing people. So it's just a pet peeve of mine. And I'm sure that's a big pet peeve of yours as well.
One of the biggest. And what a shame too, because there is so much spotlight to be had in life in general, certainly in the corporate world. And by the way, the goodwill that we gain by sharing in that spotlight, even when I'm accepting something, personal type accolade or award, it's like when you throw a we out there, and I couldn't have done it without the team, the goodwill we create is priceless.
Yep.
And it's true, man. Very little is done from an I or me perspective, which is where I stumbled onto back in, I guess it was around 2016. And that was the pivotal or sentinel moment in my leadership journey that's forever changed me as a leader, certainly, but as a person as well. It's changed my life.
Yeah. So talk about the 10 We's. This is from your book, again, Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling book, Begin with We, the 10 principles for building and sustaining a culture of excellence. Who doesn't want that? And so let's talk about those, though. You talk about it, the framework, the 10 We's required for building and sustaining a culture of excellence.
Yeah, so I'll take you back to Lawrence, Kansas, of all places. I love Lawrence, but it served as a really pivotal moment for me. I was in my hotel room. I just accepted the role of leading about 15,000 really dedicated men and women that staff probably the world's largest health insurance enrollment and customer service operation.
Wow.
The company, I was not naive. It was shared very early on that there was an opportunity to kind of reinvigorate some energy, maybe do some work on the company culture. And but I knew also, having spent the previous 20 years in massive organizations, as you mentioned, Fortune 10 firms, that if I were to show up with this group and kind of talked about and the success I had, because I'd always, throughout my career, there's a flavor of transformation. I would come in, fix something, fix a big team, fix a big org, turn things around, which has always been a passion of mine. But I knew with this group, had I entered with more of the I and me and kind of, here's what I'm here to do for you, it would not have worked because they'd heard it all before. I was not naive. The fellow who had the role before me was dismissed, and I believe the one before him was also. And if you take into consideration the team, my direct reports, they had an average tenure of north of 10 years. So here's this new guy coming into the fold.
Yeah.
And to approach it as if I was the savior would just not have resonated. So the night before, I was to meet with the top 40 or 50 leaders of this organization in my hotel room in Lawrence, Kansas. I still had that day's suit on and my laptop in my lap. And I thought, okay, this is what you wanted. You wanted an opportunity to lead an organization and be the leader you never had. This is why you made this change. What are you going to do? So with no pre-planning or motives or agenda in mind, I just started typing into this blank PowerPoint presentation. And a couple hours later, all I had was 10 sentences. And each of them started with the word we. And I'm not super creative, so I had the 10 we's. But the point of where the magic, I think, started. So the next morning, I stepped out, spoke to the 40 or 50 folks, and half were really excited and on board. A quarter were kind of skeptical, and the last quarter was just like, this guy's full of it. They just weren't hearing it. So much so, by the way, I should add, Brett, that one of the fellas was bold enough to share that evening that he Googled the 10 We's because he thought I'd plagiarized them. And then he went another step further and asked for my presentation because he wanted to check the properties within PowerPoint to see if I was the creator of that deck or if I had stolen it from somewhere else. We're still buddies. But I think the highlight or the bumper sticker of this part of the story is this. In my career, I noticed, and it all came together that night in Lawrence, that companies were really excited about flaunting their mission statement. They were really excited about externally positioning their company externally in a way that is flattering or favorable or endears them to their clients. But what is missed is setting that same standard inside the organization. So for me to document these 10 principles, and be very adamant and direct that these are our rules of the road, non-negotiable. I did the whole presentation in black and white, and still nearly every time it's in black and white with some red sprinkled in, because it can't be negotiable. But these principles align us around a common cause, and they're all we oriented. But what they do is they create kind of force field's too dramatic, but I'll go with it, that insulates us from external headwinds. It sets the table for who we are, how we operate, and it removes any ambiguity around the way that we treat each other first, and then how we treat those that we serve externally. And they're very purposeful in the order in which they are written. But at the end of the day, this entire monologue that I'm sharing with you was my way to tell them, first, these are the principles me accountable. I led with that because I'd seen the leadership, what I call the leadership gap, too many times, where the boss has a certain standard of behavior and the team has another one. And I think right out of the gate, you're destined for failure if there's a double standard in how we treat each other, the things I'm allowed to do versus the things you're allowed to do. So A, you must hold me accountable to these, because B, I will certainly hold you accountable to them. And if you can't subscribe to these principles, respect, you're not going to be a great fit for this team. So that was kind of the sentinel moment that I shared the principles. I was not forceful in implementing them. I wanted the team to take to them gradually. And I'm so thrilled to share 5-6 years later, the 10 We's are still the cultural manifest, this giant organization many years ago. They have the 10 We Awards where they share and celebrate those that are quote unquote caught living any one of the We's. And I've been able to evangelize these principles more broadly now, and companies that I'm working with have embraced it. People have embraced it because it sets the standard for who we are, how we operate, aside from some lofty mission statement that no one can really relate to on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yeah, I love that, man. So let's start with number one. What's number one?
Well, so I must give a disclaimer as we walk through these. I'm certain members of your audience are going to say, "Well, no shit. Of course, we're going to do these things." But I'm not naive to that. But I will add to that this point. When used collectively and evangelized and conspicuously communicated over and over and over every single day. For example, I wear a We bracelet everywhere I go. This one's We Challenger. It's got to be memorable, noticeable. It's got to be something we can lean against, not just words on a wall. Number one is we do the right thing always. And you'll again, listeners might say, well, no shit. The beauty behind this one is once you evangelize it and we talk about it over and over again, when facing a tough decision, the team knows where we're going. They are quick to even answer the question before you ask it, because, and by the way, they'll premise their response with, "I know, Kyle, we do the right thing," right? So it removes any opportunity for us to do something that might be a little less than quote unquote right. So we do the right thing is number one. Everything else is a house of cards without it.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on that is, the Ritz-Carlton way, right? Is I think I heard one time that each member that's working that day has like a $200 or $400 budget or something like that they can fix something, right, without having to get approval. And I remember being there. One of my kids, I think it's my oldest, who's 18 now, was young. And we're there and we get an ice cream cone, and we're not 6 steps away from this place where we got the ice cream in there, and it spills, of course, and goes all over the floor. And man, those people were like around that thing so quick, got it cleaned up, boom, here's a new ice cream
SWAT
cone.
team.
Right? I mean, like, it was amazing. And
Beautiful.
So I think that's what I think of when I hear that we do the right thing always, right? We do the right thing always. That's number one. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the foundation. It's the foundation. But if you want to do the right thing and you want your team to do the right thing, for me, that takes us right to number two, and that is we lead by example. We're already setting an example. The question is not, should we lead by example? The question is, am I leading by an example I'd be proud for others to see? If it were blast all over the intranet, the company intranet, or the newsletter, or even worse, externally, is my behavior something that I'm proud of? Am I leading in a way that others want to follow? And again, I would imagine some listeners are saying, well, of course you want to lead by example, but it's not the big things that I'm talking about. When I walk through the hallway, when I'm on site or at a location, Is my head down in my phone, or is my head up saying, "Hey, Brett, good morning, nice to see you"? That's an example that must be set, right? I'll tell you a quick story, and then we can move on. But I used to visit one of the locations back in the teens when I'd 11 locations at the time when these principles were rolled out. One of the locations, invariably, every time I would go, the men's restroom, the counter where you wash your hands, had standing water every single time I went there. It was drive you crazy. And I just, I'd like every other fella in there, wash my hands, throw my paper towel away, and walk out. But it occurred to me, I am sending the message anytime I'm in there washing my hands next to somebody else. It finally occurred to me that I am sending the message that it's okay. We are accepting this puddled water. And the leader doesn't care about our work environment. That's the message I'm sending if I don't. So now, when the realization hit me, and I was in my hands, dry off, I would take extra napkins and wipe down that basin every single time. And wouldn't you know it, after a number of visits there, the water was gone. Not because of me, people were coming behind me doing the same thing.
Yep.
So it's not just, the shiniest shoes. I got the most expansive vocabulary. I'm not leading by example in those ways. I'm leading by example by being relatable to those I work with, setting an example that they want to follow, and showing the importance of our interactions, not just you are here to produce a widget for me. So that's the kind of example I want to be known for.
Yeah. Amen to that, man. I think Mother Teresa said it, and then I'll joke, my buddy Tom Myatt at a soccer game recently said it too. Sweep your own front porch, right? So any of my buddies that were on this trip will know, and it was a great time. But sweep your own front porch, man, and that's what you're doing right there. So that's awesome. What's number 3?
So if we want to do the right thing, and if we agree that leading by example is the way to do that, as leader of any team, we've got to make good on our commitments. So number 3 is we say what we're going to do, then we do it. So anytime you're in a team environment, there are others that are counting on you to deliver something, especially in corporate America. And what I have found, a lot of breakdown and disappointment that our customers experience oftentimes are the result of a breakdown or a lack of communication or delivery behind the curtain here on the team. So we've just got to be known. Every high functioning team needs to be known for, and it's usually associated with, making good on our commitments. When I tell you I'm going to deliver something to you as a member of my team, it's coming. When you tell me that you're going to deliver something to me as a member of my team, it must come. And that was, the scenario there to drive me crazy. Brett, you and I had a conversation. I agreed to deliver something to you by Thursday at noon. Thursday at noon rolls around. You call me. You're like, Kyle, what's up? Where's that report? And my response to you is, well, I reached out to Jane in accounting. I just haven't heard back from her. That's not good enough. So I committed something to you, brother. I got to get that to you, and I will go to the end of the earth to get that for you, or I will give you a heads up before Thursday at noon that this is not happening. We're a bit delayed. But I have found, especially in bigger organizations, there's this, let's point back and forth because I did my part. I made the request. No. Your part was hitting your commitment. So leading by example, I think the best way to do that is by setting a target, going after that target, making good on our commitments, because we're only as good as the commitments we keep. That's truly how I believe that. That's why number 3 is where it's ranked so high, because if we can't deliver on the commitments that we make, especially as the leader to our team, there's no trust. And without trust, we are no all.
Love it. So far, I'm in line. I'm 3 for 3, brother. What do we got number 4?
I love that. All right, I'll keep rolling. So if we're going to do the right thing, we're going to lead by example, and we're going to make good on our commitments. That means the very next step is we got to take action. So when we see an opportunity to be better, when we see maybe a broken process, or we have a disgruntled customer because of a process that we just know is too taxing, or whatever the scenario is, we got to take action. Especially in bigger organizations, and it's true of all organizations of all sizes, but especially bigger ones, there is safety in silence. And what that means is we often see opportunities for improvement, but we don't take action on them, usually for one of 2 reasons. If I raise my hand and say, hey, boss, we got an opportunity to refine this process, usually I'm going to be greeted with more work. So where's the incentive to do that? And then the second component of why this is so hard for so many to grasp is not only am I going to be asked to do the work, but if I stumble or my existing workload is compromised, I'm going to get beaten over the head with this thing that I surfaced, which was really an attempt to make us better. So there's no incentive in most organizations to raise my hand and say, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing that? I need to take a look at that and let me address that for us. There's no incentive. So stay in your lane is kind of the thought that comes to mind. But in a culture of excellence, when we really want to be excellent and be a high functioning, high performing team, we cannot walk by opportunities for improvement. You know, the old TSA adage comes to mind. If you see something, say something. Well, in this world, it's if you see something, do something. Because in today's ultra competitive environment in almost every industry, if we allow those mediocre things or the status quo sandwich, as I call it, if we allow those, we will get lapped by and we will not be here. So it's important to recognize where there's something to do, we got to do it. But if you want your team to take action and you want people to recognize that there's a way to be better and we have a chance to be better, the only way to get them to do that is to create an environment where they're comfortable making mistakes. And that takes us to we number 5. We own our mistakes. So if I'm in an environment where a team says, or the team is well aware, they are tasked, empowered, and obligated to identify ways for us to be better, we got to allow them the safety to make a mistake trying to make it better. Because again, where's the incentive if we're just going to beat them over the head? So the culture of excellence says, for us to be great, we're going to make mistakes. Everyone knows that. We're going to own those mistakes because I think we talked about it at the top of the call. Those challenges and those mistakes result in growth. And if we want to be better, we got to try or fail. That's life. But we got to try to get better. So we're going to own our mistakes. And the sooner the team is aware that you as the leader will be there with your hand outstretched to help them get up and move on to the next thing, the more likely they are to take action and own the mistake that comes with that action being taken.
I'm a note-taking machine, brother. You can probably see that. Hey, I'm just taking notes.
I love it.
This is great. This is great. We do the right thing.
Well,
we lead by examples. We say what we're going to do, and we do it. We take action. We own our mistakes. Leads us to number 6.
Yeah, and there's the continuum here. So when the team feels comfortable to raise their hand and say, I made a mistake, they're only going to do that when they know they're in an environment where we 6 exists, and that is we pick each other up. We pick each other up. Look, we're all coming to the workplace, whether it be virtual or in person, with baggage. You know, we've all got things going on outside of work. We've got things going on inside of work. It's not often that we bring our very best self to our job. It's not. We'd like to think it is, and a lot of environments will demand that and not be understanding that sometimes life gets in the way. So we pick each other up as critical because if we're going to own our mistakes from action being taken, we have to know that others have our back, especially the leader. But there's 2 components here. I want to kind of bifurcate between the 2. Owning the mistake is critical for picking each other up. So we can't help someone if we don't know that they're struggling, right? The results may show it, but not everybody sees those results. So all members of the team don't see all members of the team's mission. And that is propel members on your team and those around you to new heights. I don't believe it's just enough for the boss or the leader in this case to get members of their team to be high performing at what they do now. I think a great leader helps them develop to take on their next role, even if, by the way, that role is outside of my team, outside of the organization, even. Because if the team members, if members of the team know that me as their leader, I'm really invested in their journey, I'm really invested in their growth, I want them to be their best, not just so I can deliver great results for my team. I want them to be their best because I want to be a good human and I want to be surrounded by people that are their best. And I take this so seriously that I've had members of my teams throughout the years come to me and say they've got opportunities to join other companies. They're eyeing an opening somewhere else. I help them get that next job. I help them. We'll do mock interviews. I'll work with you on your whatever you need, because an off-chain role, the connection and goodwill that we've now established, because I've proven to you I really care more about you than your results, is profound. And that's happened to me a number of times, helping someone leave the company. They've either gotten the role or they haven't. But when they return back to this team, the commitment they have until the next opportunity comes around, I'm not naive, is stronger. I think it's true. We all want to be appreciated for what we do, and the value that we bring, but not in a moment in time. The value that we bring is exponential over time. We need to encourage people to be their best, whether that's with us or somewhere else.
Yeah.
So that's we number
mentality.
6. We pick each other up.
It's abundance mentality versus scarcity.
Amen. Right. And there's this thing inside of the corporate world where for someone to win, someone else must lose. And I just think that's garbage. So the more we can pick each other up, them along on their journey, not only do we help someone else, but it just feels good. It just feels good to help someone else along their way. So I admit the first 6 of the we's are more foundational in nature, and they kind of set the table for who we are. But as we move 7 through 10, you'll notice that the we's become a little more difficult for some to grasp, maybe a little more controversial. That's a relative term. But also, I believe this is where we pivot to steal from Collins, from good to great. Yep. And we number 7 is we measure ourselves by outcomes, period, not activity. And I'm sure you've seen it in your business and throughout your career. And it's gotten worse, I think, over time, where we in the corporate world, we give out what amounts to participation ribbons. And that to me is it dilutes the impact of delivering great results. We wear the number of we every day as a badge of honor. If I'm double booked, triple booked, like that's supposed to impress people. Right. But that's not what the client or our customers, that's not why they pay us. They pay us for the outcome. So what I noticed throughout my career was a lot of people run around very busy, engaged in a lot of activities, but they're busy for busy's sake, the sake of busyness. What I like to challenge people to do is identify a handful of things for which you're being judged or you're held accountable, right? That are on your performance appraisal. List of tasks that you're obligated to deliver on whatever the time frequency is, weekly, monthly, whatever. And then evaluate all of your activities, every meeting you're participating in. And if those meetings and those activities don't directly connect to those outcomes that you've been assigned, or that the outcomes that you're tasked to deliver, scrutinize them. Why am I doing this? Why am I in this meeting? Why am I asked to do this if it doesn't lead to that? There's a caveat. I'm not naive. We're compliant. We have legal things. There are got things that we have to do that you may not be able to draw a straight line to that outcome, but that's the exception. I think the rule should be, if I'm engaged in something, it should deliver or help me deliver my outcome. And the cliche that I use over and over again is, Brett, I am so happy when my Uber driver picks me up with a tank full of gas or enough gas to get me from A to B. But I didn't pay him or her to stop at the gas station before they picked me up. I paid for the outcome of getting me from A to B. So the more we focus on the outcomes, I think the more earnest we can be in our efforts. And I think outcomes, they come in a way that is more superior than just focused on the busyness. I think that's a curse inside of an organization, trying to stay busy.
Let's keep them rocking. The last 3.
Here we go. My favorite of all, too. Number 8 is we challenge each other. Most organizations, challenges come from here. For those listening at home, that is the boss to the team. Occasionally, we encourage challenges within the team, peer to peer, occasionally. But rarely is a challenge, are we adamant about the challenge? Challenges must also come from the team to the leader. In other words, the challenges must come from every direction, because the result of progress, everything or anything worth having in this life, is almost always the result of overcoming one or more challenges. You want to lose weight? Got to burn calories. You got to change diet. You got to work out, whatever. You want to learn how to play the guitar? Get lessons, get on YouTube, whatever the scenario is for you. You must challenge yourself to deliver that. If I have a solution or a position on a topic, I want every good idea on the table. I want a meritocracy of sorts where people can talk through and feel obligated almost to challenge one another. And when you introduce this into your world, a lot of things happen, but the beauty of what I've seen firsthand is, I'll go back to staff meetings. You may relate to this, where a staff meeting in most environments is the boss is at the end of the table, the team around the table, and they each go through their updates. And everyone on the team is just kind of heads down in their phone or on their laptop while each other is going through their updates. The only person theoretically paying attention is the boss, and it's one-to-one, which is a waste of everyone's time, by the way. But when we have an environment that is rich in challenge, and you're not just allowed to, you're empowered and obligated to issue challenges, you have team members start to question updates in a healthy and productive way. And the result of that interaction becomes a knowledge share that enables other members of the team to insert their own opinions or experience on the topic at hand. Now, there is one very clear line and rule for we number 8, and that is all challenges, first, they must be done diplomatically, but they must be grounded in either data and or experience. So in other words, I can't come to the staff meeting, Brett, you start opining on something and I don't like it just simply because it's my opinion. That's not a challenge. That's a complaint. But if I say, hey, Brett, you're walking us down a path somewhere that I've been here before. In my last role, we had a product launch similar to this and we stumbled because of X, Y, and Z. As a leader, you want to hear that. You want that information. You want that challenge. You want to be smarter for that interaction. So challenges have to come via data and or experience. But we number 8, without we number, and we number 9 is we embrace challenge. So in our organization, when we establish the environment that is rich in challenge, it must be rich in embracing those challenges, whether it be from a peer, whether it be from the leader, whether it be an external force, whatever the scenario is, we've got to embrace those challenges, because if we deny them, we're going to get lapped, because the challenges just go away if you look the other way. And we've got to create this kind of ethos where, yep, I'm aware that sucks. Let's move on. We got to embrace the challenge and keep trucking. Because what happens when we embrace those challenges, now we are focused on something other than ourselves. We're focusing on the outcomes. We're focusing on us being better and not denying the challenge. So embracing it at we number 9 is incredibly important. Which takes us to the last we. You've held on through all 10. And I think the 10 is the icing on the cake. That is one, because if we lead with 10, we're setting ourselves up for failure. And that is, we obsess over details. It's the icing on the cake, the bow on the present, whatever cliche you want to use. Because I happen to believe in every team environment, the level of obsession over the details is akin or synonymous to our obsession for satisfying our clients, those that we serve. Things like consistent use of fonts and spelling and presentations. Like here's an example I love, actually. When's the last time you opened a product from Apple? Right? It's just the tape with the arrow on it telling, right? They put engineers in rooms for months on end every time there's a new product launch, because they want that experience for the customer, the consumer, to be wow, right? So obsessing over those details sends the message to our clients: we care about you. We care about your experience. We care about your impression of our product. But again, all of these principles start from behind the curtain. If we're detail-oriented and focused on the details behind the curtain, we're just much better positioned to have that same paradigm externally. So we've got to obsess over details. I developed a reputation and even a nickname of the Shredder when I was still in corporate. And that was because my team would, give a PowerPoint or they'd presentation, whatever the marketing, whatever it was. And I was just the Shredder. I would notice font size 14 on page 3, but 16 on 4. The indentation on page 7 was different than on 2. And I just think that sends a message to the consumer that we just threw this shit together. We didn't take a lot of care in putting this together. So that's the 10 We's. And it just occurred to me, I left out a very important intro to this. For everyone listening, a principle, by definition, this isn't my term, by definition, a principle is a fundamental truth. It is our system of beliefs. So when a team or group of people are aligned around a system of beliefs, we're all on the same page in how we view things, our fundamental truths, we are just much better and positioned and the likelihood of success and excellence is dramatically increased because why? We have the same fundamental beliefs on who we are, how we behave, and what we do.
Strong message, my man. Very strong message. So last couple questions here. What are some habits, if I follow you around every day, what are the things I'm going to see, the no miss items that Kyle McDowell are doing day in and day out?
Love that question. I would say regardless of with whom I'm interacting, the most junior, newest person to the C-level executive in the office, my level of authenticity and my commitment never wavers. Now, the way I interact with those different audiences, it could be different. And you would see that because I believe relatability is a key component. I always say relatability plus authenticity equals trust. Yep. So if I'm relatable to those with whom I interact, and they see that I'm really being true to who I am, every interaction, regardless of the topic, trust is gained. At least it's easier to gain. So you'll see a guy that is really focused on improving the employee experience, focused on improving the work life for as many people who will hear me out, because you probably know this, man. We spend 90,000 hours on average in a lifetime working. Yeah. The only thing we do more is sleep. That's it. So if we're going to spend so much time, essentially the number one thing of our waking hours doing this thing called work, shouldn't it be rewarding? Yeah. Shouldn't it be the best experience it can be, the most impactful, the most fulfilling? Now, please don't mishear me. I'm not naive. There's a difference between a job and a career. We've all had jobs that enabled us to launch our career. They were a stepping stone to something bigger. But I think even, with all respect to anyone flipping a burger, but even someone that flips a burger and slides it across the counter to somebody, they deserve fulfillment. They deserve to see the smile on the face of the person on the other end of that transaction. And I think the best way to secure that type of fulfillment is to go at it as a team, not just me collecting my paycheck. And I think as we matriculate through our careers and that journey, whether I'm a leader of 15,000 people or not a leader of anybody at all, I'm just leading myself, the value that comes with this paradigm is profound.
It's awesome. Man, I love your passion, Kyle. I love it, brother. Where can our listeners find more of you?
So I'm on essentially every social platform of the same handle of @KyleMcDowell Inc. My website is kylemcdowellinc.com. And I think you mentioned it at the top, but shameless plug. The book is Begin with We, and it's available worldwide, bookstores everywhere. I'm actually kind of partial to the audio version. I think it's got a little more energy than just the page turning, but that's me. And man, I say this on every podcast, regardless of the venue or format, I would love to hear from your listeners. And I mean that, whether it be a problem they're facing inside the workplace, or they're trying to level up their leadership, or they just want to have more impact and find greater fulfillment in anything that they do, hit me. I'm here. I respond to nearly every single inquiry that I get because it just matters to me that much. And again, I'd be a hypocrite, something less than authentic if I didn't do that.
I love it, man. Well, thanks so much, Kyle, for your time. It's been awesome having you. The 10 W's, if people don't take notes on that stuff and then implement it, I got a buddy that listens as a high school basketball coach, crushing it there. I mean, why would we not have our 10 W's, right? Whether your culture's in the locker room or your boardroom or the athletic field or at home, man, we got to have our 10 W's.
Bingo, Brett. And that's been the unintended byproduct that I'm really proud of, is how the 10 W's have manifested and kind of transitioned beyond just the corporate world and business. I'm working with 2 different school districts right now. The team thing, chess team, bowling team, work, it doesn't matter. A team is a team. And if we subscribe to a series of beliefs, we are there's not a lot we can't do together. Yeah. So I love the connection you just made in the sports world.
I love it. Well, hey, I may holler at you, man, have you come virtually speak to our soccer team. We got one more big game on Friday, and then we're going to keep this train going, try to get to state again. So we'll holler at you.
Let's go. I'm in.
All right, Kyle, it's been awesome having you, man. And thanks so much for being on the Circuit of Success.